Hey everybody, John Wagnon here with Dev Central. We're coming to you with another Lightboard lesson. And today we're going to go over the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, and we've had a couple other videos on this. Today we're talking about the number 4 vulnerability on that list, and it's the XML external entities, or it's the acronym that they use is XXE, which by the way, I don't know why they call it XXE, because it's XML external entities. But nonetheless, somebody named it XXE. That's what it is. Essentially, what this vulnerability does is it takes advantage of XML processors or XML parsers in your web application that might process or parse some bad data. So let me give you kind of an example here. Let's say you have a web application here, and that web application is built with the foundation of a lot of different stuff. But one of the things that it has the capability of, or that it allows things to do, or that it takes advantage of, is an XML parser. And I'll just put XML parser. And this web app, again, it's going to be built with lots and lots of different things. But one of those things, again, is an XML parser. All right, so let's say you have an XML parser, and you either, I'll say, accept XML input directly, or maybe you take some other XML input, and then you let the XML parser parse through that input. So again, the web application may directly accept XML and process it itself, or you have an XML parser that is a part of your web application that would parse XML input or an XML file. So nonetheless, you've got XML going on your web application. Okay, sometimes these XML documents will contain or a reference to an external entity. So as the XML document itself is built, then you may have XML, I'll just say doc right here, and it's got lots of different things that make up the XML document. But and this is certainly not perfect syntax. You can go into XML syntax to figure out exactly how XML documents are built. But let's say that there's a reference here to an external, like an external entity. And so I'll put that right there. Or like an external type document in the XML document. All right, what this could allow an attacker to do is put some kind of a malicious payload in that external entity, and then if the XML parser or the XML document that is parsed or processed by your web application, if that doesn't check things properly on this external entity reference, then the bad payload that's in that thing could get run, and then it could do bad things for the contents of what your web application would hold. So things like, let's say, for example, that some bad guy put in some malicious reference here to say, hey, I want to try to run a system command on your web application, and I want to trick it into giving me all your passwords that are stored on your web application, for example. Or maybe I want to run some other system command that would do some kind of malicious something or another. If the XML parser is not configured properly, then it's going to run that command and it's going to spill all that data, and so that's not a good thing. There are a lot of Java XML parsers that have XXE enabled by default. That's just the way that they're built, because XXE in and of itself is not inherently a bad thing, and certainly with some of the older versions of XML, it's a necessary thing. So you've got to go through and look at how these things are configured. And so anyway, so sometimes Java will have that enabled by default. One specific example of an attack that could happen with these XML external entities is an attack called the Billion Laughs. So I'm going to put this up here, and I had to kind of laugh a little bit when I read about this and kind of did a little research on this. Basically, what happens here, what the attacker bad guy is going to do, I'm going to kind of write out the XML file that would be sent into this XML parser that doesn't validate things properly. It's not going to be perfect syntax, but you'll get the idea. All right, let's say you have this XML file, and it's XML version 1.0, and then you've got, it defines the document type. All right, so it's going to have that. And this one is going to be called LOLs, because lols. And then there's going to be some entities defined in here. Entity, and one entity is going to be LOL1. Then there will be other entities, and this will be LOL2, LOL3, all the way down to LOL9. All right, so there's all these entities. There's also an element that's defined called LOLs as well. Anyway, the point is the way that this works is the entity LOL1 is going to have the contents of it. The contents of that is going to be LOL1 semicolon LOL1, so forth and so on, and it's going to have like 10 of these out there. And then LOL2 is going to have LOL2, LOL2. Anyway, these entities are going to have the definition of what this entity contains is all these little LOLs all the way across. So whenever you send this malicious payload, basically you're going to send LOLZ. It's going to look something like this. You're going to have this little ampersand, and then you're going to send it this LOL9, alrighty, and then you'll have LOLZ to close it out. All right, I know that's not great penmanship. Basically, you're going to say, hey, run this LOL9. Well, LOL9 is going to consist of a bunch of LOL8s, and then the LOL8s are going to consist of a bunch of LOL7s, and then 6 and 5 and 4, and all the way up. When it's all said and done, you would have sent a document that's less than 1 kilobyte in size, and you're going to make this parser or this XML processor on your web application have to crunch through approximately 3 gigabytes of memory, or use up 3 gigabytes of memory to crunch through this entire document. So in effect, it's like a denial of service attack. It's this completely asymmetric attack. You send it one little bitty file, and then it has to crunch through like 3 gigs of memory. All right, so that's just one example of what may happen here if you don't have the XML parser configured properly. So the question is, well, what do we do to help with this? One thing is you can disable XXE completely on your web application, and if you can't do it completely, then you would look at all the different parts and pieces of your web application, basically, and go through each one and say, hey, how can I disable this, per parser? Another thing that you can do is disable what's called DTD processing, and that again, if you can do it across the entire web application, then that's good. Otherwise, you go through each individual XML processor or parser to say, hey, how do I disable DTD on each of these? Another thing you can do is you can implement some positive server-side input validation. So as you accept these XML inputs into your web application, do some input validation before you just run the commands. Another thing you can do is what's called source code analysis tools, or SAST. And you can run source code verification and testing against your source code in your web application to see if any of this is vulnerable. Another thing you can do is what's called dynamic application security testing, or DAST. And you can run that against your web application to say, hey, as we send things like XXE attacks against it, is it vulnerable to those kinds of things? So anyway, so those are a few things that you can do to help mitigate this problem. Another thing you can do is you can implement what's called a web application firewall, or a WAF, and that helps with a lot of these things. So if you can't fix the problem in the code, in the web application itself, then you can add on a web application firewall, which is really handy as well. So anyway, so again, XXE, that's the number 4 vulnerability on the OWASP top 10. And we just want to make sure you understood what goes on here, the problems that could arise, and hope you guys stay safe out there. And thanks for watching this Lightboard lesson video. If you like this one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys out there in the community.